Let's move on to the Colorado Avalanche. Last year, they were third in the Central Division. Were sixth in Corsi for percentage at even strength, 10th in expected goals for percentage, and fifth in scoring chances for percentage. At 5v5, their save percentage was 21st in the league at 903, and their shooting percentage at even strength was sixth at 10.33. And then their power play percentage was 20. They converted at 24.5%, which was fifth in the league. This team is extremely top heavy, with the guys at the top playing tons of minutes. And then the rest of the lineup not really doing a whole lot offensively, but their numbers look fantastic because those guys at the top absolutely dominate when they're on the ice. So and honestly, Jared Bednar deploys his top guys in a manner that is so great for fantasy hockey managers. He loves us. Jared Bednar, big fan of us fantasy hockey managers for sure. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the Colorado Avalanche moving forward here?
Yeah, no, their top guys are getting all the minutes. My only question is Nichushkin. What are they going to do with him? Are you going to pick him up late, stash him, and is he going to be a steal for your team at the middle and the end of the year like he was last year, or is his leash a little short? But other than that, the people you're going to draft, the top dogs, are going to get top dog minutes. So that's something I'm always happy to draft, people who I know will get good deployment.
For sure. I think that going into key departures, there weren't a lot. Sean Walker, who was a deadline pickup, he moved on, and Yakov Trenin, another deadline pickup, he moved on as well. Everyone else was not super relevant. Eric Brandstrom was a pickup. He didn't get qualified by the Sens, and Colorado picked him up. And then Gabe Landeskog, that's my addition. He's not new to the roster, but he would be new to being in the lineup. It sounds like he's going to be ready fairly close to the start of the season, if not right away. So that's pretty exciting. His ADP is all over the place because when mock draft started, we didn't know this information. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where he gets drafted.
Yeah,
But
for
I'm
sure. I
definitely
see.
interested on what. Yeah, what are you saying there, Gugsy?
Sorry, I just see he's at 137.8 right now. I imagine
Mm-hmm.
in 2 weeks from now he could easily be like a 110 or something, just because of hype alone.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that, I mean, that's a guy that's gonna that could potentially smash. Obviously, he hasn't played in 2 years. That's a big
Yeah,
factor, due to injuries that they thought were gonna essentially force him to retire. So
yeah,
we don't know what Gabe Landeskog is going to look like, but the ceiling there is immense. So,
hmm,
and then like you said, Val Nichushkin, we don't really know what's going on with him. We don't know if he'll be back with Colorado, but he's eligible to come back sometime in November, I believe. So, that's another guy that I would maybe take a flyer on at the end of my draft as well. I mean, obviously at the very end, because I don't know if he's even going to play at all. Like maybe he goes back to the KHL. I have no idea. I really that's a situation that no one. It seems like no one really knows, and no one
yeah,
really has inside information on. So we will see what happens. But if he does get back in this lineup, like that could be, like he could almost be a league winner.
yeah.
So that's a fascinating one to be watching for sure. So as much as Colorado has a lot of players where you know what to expect, there's a lot of question marks here too, because their ceiling could be even higher. Um, and then in terms of goaltending, Alexander Georgiev last year was a volume starter, 62 starts, with a 906 even strength save percentage. I've noticed that the Central Division is kind of the volume starter division. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
guys that are at the top of the league in terms of starts every year are from the Central Division, and you'll see that as we move forward through these teams. I'm not sure. It's fascinating to me. I noticed that last year for the first time, but Georgiev, one of those volume starters, Eustace Annanen,
Oh yeah.
played really well in limited time. He had 12 starts, 923 even strength save percentage. Was not They did not plan on him being the backup last year, but Pavel Francouz ended up having an injury that derailed his career. He retired this offseason. So Annunen was kind of thrown in there. Didn't get a ton of starts, but he looked really solid in limited time, and I think that's a guy to be watching. But I still think Georgiev is the volume guy for sure. Any objections there?
No, I agree. Annunen is last year. I was always impressed by his performances. He had good performances for the most part, and I always kept him on my watch list just in case Georgiev stunk it up or had an injury. And Georgiev had some stinkers. Don't get me wrong, but I just kept coping that please Annunen become the starter because having the Colorado Avalanche in front of you as a goalie that's awesome, especially if you can get that goalie for free. So Justice. He's probably going to be on my watch lists in every league. And if it's a really like deep goalie league, I might even draft him. So yeah.
Sure. And schedule quirks. Talk to me about the Avs and what their schedule looks like this year.
Yeah, for sure. So they got 12 back-to-backs, tied for 16th, 32 off nights, and that's tied for 7th. Weeks 22 and 24 playoff schedule, they'll have 10 games with only 3 off nights, and weeks 23 to 25, they'll have 11 games, again, 2 off nights on that. So not great for the off nights department.
Yeah, interesting. They have a lot of off nights, more off nights than average through the season, but at the end of the year, they don't have a ton of off nights when it really counts. So that hurts a little bit, but I still think there's Colorado Avalanche. These guys are the guys that you're going to be rostering from this team are going to be in your lineup. There's not going to be any questions. So, I'm not too concerned about thinking about playoff schedule when you're drafting, especially at the top of the draft. And power play projection, this is an interesting one. So I've got Nate MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar as locks here. Before the news about Gabe Landeskog, I had Drouin and Arturi Lehkonen as the other two guys on the top unit. Once Landeskog comes back, I think there's a legitimate discussion about whether it should be Lehkonen or Drouin that stays as the fourth forward there. I personally would love if it was Lehkonen, just because I like him more. I like what he does under the hood. But Jonathan Drouin has proven that he has some chemistry with these top guys, especially Nate MacKinnon, and has played effectively on the power play. So I don't know, Gugsy, do you prefer one over the other here, and what do you project that it's going to look like?
I also prefer Lehkonen. Maybe the coach sees something that Drouin has that Lehkonen doesn't. Of course, the chemistry, there's history with him and MacKinnon. But I remember Drouin just had stretches of doing nothing on the power play. He's on one of the best power plays in the league, and he was just on the wire for multiple leagues because he was doing nothing until like the late second half of the season when he really popped off. I don't know. I'd imagine, or if I was the coach, I'd probably boot Drouin off before Lehkonen, but you never know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we definitely will. All right. Talk to me about the forwards on the Colorado Avalanche. Tell me what you think about my projections here, buddy.
Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon, 48 goals, 83 assists, 131 points, 410 shots with that, with 45 power play points. Just ridiculous numbers, which is what you expect from Big Nate Dog. Mikko Rantanen, 44 goals and a nice 69 assists with 113 points, 39 on the power play. Jonathan Drouin, 13 goals, 41 assists, 54 points. Casey Middlestat, we got 15 goals for him, 37 assists, 52 points. Gabe Landeskog, 30 goals, nice, 44 assists, 74 points with a whopping 127 hits. And Arturi Lehkonen with 29 goals, 41 assists, 70 points, and 104 hits. Pretty good. With
So
Landeskog,
worth noting
that screams out to me, damn.
Yeah, worth noting that projection would be over an 82 game stretch, which it sounds like he's not going to play that many games. So just take that with a grain of salt. But that's the pace that I have him projected to score at. So I mean he's a guy that was a top line talent on this team. That was overshadowed by MacKinnon and Rantanen, but he's still a guy that could produce. So, we haven't seen what he's looked like in the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of unknowns there, but that is certainly at least a ballpark that we can look at a little bit. Arturi Lehkonen, I have him projected for a lot there. I'm probably going to dial that back a decent amount just because he's not going to get that. Like he's potentially not going to be top power play when Landeskog comes back. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I'm high on Lehkonen, but maybe not as high as I was pre the Landeskog news. But any other any other points you want to make about these forwards here, Gugsy?
No, I'd say you covered it. Casey Middlestat intrigues me because he got some power play one time last year. I think
Yep.
just to replace some injured players there. So that's one I'm going to keep on my watch list. How excited are you for Middlestat this year?
Not very.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Middlestat fan in the world. I think
Yeah.
obviously if he's getting some time on Power Play 1 in Colorado, I'm relatively interested, but I think he's a straight streamer. I just don't think he does enough across the board to really get me excited. Yeah, man. I just feel like he's one of those straight playmakers, which just really doesn't excite me very much.
Fair enough.
And honestly, like he may have Lehkonen on his wing. Maybe he gets Nichushkin and Lehkonen at some point. But outside of that, I don't think the environment is fantastic if he's not getting power play 1 time. So, yeah, again, this team is incredibly top heavy. So, yeah, I just don't see Middlestat being. I think he had his best stretch when he was playing with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck in Buffalo. So, and I just don't see that being the case in Colorado here.
Yeah, he needs top dog deployment, primo deployment like he got in Buffalo. Can't get that here.
Totally. I projected 4 defensemen on Colorado, which is the most I projected from any team. So why don't you talk to us about these guys that I've got here?
We got Cale Makar projected for 23 goals, 67 assists, 91 points with 244 shots. That's pretty good. And Devon Taves at 11 goals, 35 assists, and 46 points. Josh Manson will get 8 goals, 23 assists, 31 points. He's a banger, so he'll get you 203 hits and 127 blocks. And Samuel Girard with 6 goals, 33 assists, 39 points with 125 blocks.
Yeah, I think Sam Girard with Bo Byram out of the picture, I think has a little bit more of an offensive opportunity there. I think he'll play some more minutes, and that's exciting because he has shown that he has some offensive upside. Doesn't do a ton peripherally, doesn't shoot a lot. He does block, but yeah, I could see him getting at least pushing the 40-point mark, which is certainly something to at least watch for Sam Girard. I don't know if that necessarily, it depends on your league, but I don't know if that necessarily makes him a rosterable player for an entire season, but it certainly is a guy that you should be watching on the waiver wire. Manson, I threw him in there because he's got he chips in a little bit of offense and gets a ton of periffs, so that's a guy that you should always be keeping track of. Devon Taves, there's tons of contingent upside with him. If Cale Makar goes down with an injury at any point, he's going to be the power play quarterback. They've shown that in the past. That's the way that they lean. And in that case, he could. I think Nate talked about him being potentially a lock for a 60-point defenseman if he gets on that top power play. So that would be huge. And then Cale Makar, obviously, he's going to be the number 1 defenseman off your board. And that's a guy that, I mean, this is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised hits 100 points at some point in his career. So yeah, but 91 points seems pretty safe to me for Makar. Let's talk about sleepers. So I had Arturi Lehkonen as a sleeper. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I do feel like year after year he does get disrespected and goes lower in drafts no matter what. I'm not as excited because I don't think there is as much opportunity if Landeskog is back. Val Nichushkin is another guy that I think you need to be looking at, as we mentioned before, because if he comes back and he plays in this lineup, that's going to be massive, and you could potentially even see him on power play 1 as well.
Oh yeah,
which would be crazy. And then my top three targets, I've got Gabe Landeskog, just because of his ADP. I know you said it was 131 currently. I'm pretty comfortable taking a flyer on Gabe Landeskog at that point.
Yep.
Arturi Lekkinen, his ADP is down. Like I said, he gets disrespected. Yahoo ADP is 163. In Apples and Genos leagues, it's 127. So I'm pretty comfortable taking Lekkinen there as well. And then Cale Makar, I mean, his ADP right now is what do we got here? It's his Yahoo ADP is 9.5. Apples and Genos ADP 9.4. I might even take him a little bit higher than that. Maybe not
Totally.
much. That's probably around where I'm happy with him. But in terms of value, for these guys, I mean, a lot of these guys are going right where they're supposed to be going. But Cale Makar is a guy that I'm going to be targeting if I have a pick at the back end of the first
Totally.
round. Yeah. Any notes there? Any other guys you're excited about? Do you want to throw Casey Middlestad on there?
I'll throw Casey Middlestad on there if enough people are injured. But on Landeskog and even Nichushkin, they're a bit of a gamble. But in those double digit rounds, in those later rounds, you want to kind of maximize the ceiling on the player you're drafting as opposed to the floor. So Landeskog and Nichushkin, their floors might be pretty low. Landeskog might just be too injured and old. Nichushkin might just have too many problems, and the staff doesn't trust them. But their ceilings are pretty damn high. Power play one performers on one of the best power plays. So you got to ask yourself, am I willing to take that risk in the 11th round, the 12th round? You got to understand like how smart your opponents are, because they're probably thinking the same way. So before your draft, just tell yourself, where am I comfortable taking this player who has a great ceiling but a questionable floor with what's going on with them.